And we're back. I'm Professor Scott Plum with the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
The company pitch. The chance for the salesperson to tell the prospect how wonderful their company is, whether they want to hear it or not. Perhaps you should ask yourself, does your company pitch positively affect the client, or does it turn them away? So clear the mechanism as Scott and I discuss your company pitch and much more on episode 449 of the Get in the Door podcast.
So I'm sure, Bill, there's a reason that you came up with this introduction on clear the mechanism. Is there a backstory on that?
Well, yeah, if you watch baseball movies, it's a Kevin Costner movie, For the Love of the Game. And he is a pitcher pitching maybe his last game, professional pitcher. And when he goes to get ready, he's in New York in Yankee Stadium, and the crowd there is not friendly to a visiting pitcher. And when he's ready to pitch, he says, clear the mechanism. And all the sounds in the background fade out, and all the other things around turn to faded, and all you can see is the catcher in the glove.
Wow.
And I think that's true for a lot of what we need to do to really get our success mechanism to work is how can we clear out distractions?
Mm-hmm. And that's what Chapter 6 is on, from the Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. The Relax and Let Your Success Mechanism Work for You is the title of it. And I think this chapter can be summarized best by just saying, sleep on it. There's a saying of sleep on it. And when we sleep on something, we have a chance to really clear our mind.
Brought to you by our sponsor, Sleep Number Beds.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Exactly.
We'll
My Pillow.
My Pillow, yeah.
A Minnesota company. Go out and buy your My Pillow and support a Minnesota company.
I think Sleep Number was Minnesota too, wasn't it?
It is. Yeah. That's right. They just moved to downtown Minneapolis.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, and we are looking for sponsors. We have over 10,000 downloads a month. So if you want to have salespeople learn about your product, this is the place to go. But I'm distracting us.
That would be called a house ad.
Yeah,
so we're promoting ourselves.
We're talking about getting rid of distractions. So
Right.
let's talk about sleeping on it. You were at.
Yeah. So it seems like when we sleep on something, we kind of let our subconscious do the work, which is another theme of this chapter, is letting our subconscious really work on solving the problem. And in the first part of the chapter, the author, Dr. Maxwell Maltz, talked about the forebrain thinking. And the forebrain is compatible to the operator of the electronic brain. This is right out of the book. The forebrain is compatible as the operator of the electronic brain or any type of servo mechanism. It is what the forebrain thinks about. So when we think about I, that's the forebrain. And feel our sense of identity is coming from the forebrain. It is with the forebrain that we exercise imagination and set goals. So these are conscious behaviors. The subconscious is what can really work on creating the problems that the forebrain comes up with when it comes to setting goals or imagining or even thinking about problems. So the forebrain cannot create, it cannot do the job to be done any more than the operator of the electronic brain can do the work. So the author is really separating our forebrain and our subconscious brain to think about. The forebrain comes up with the problem, the subconscious brain ends up figuring out a creative solution.
So does that mean we should go with whatever our gut is? Is that our subconscious speaking?
Well, I think we should listen to our subconscious because there is self-doubt. And in our first chapter, we talked about the self-image. And the self-image can be positive or negative. And what is our emotional reaction when it comes to our self-image? Is it positive or negative? And sometimes,
so we have to be careful then if our subconscious is poorly formed.
Right. Yeah. And keep in mind, and I'll say it again, we cannot outperform a negative self-image.
Right.
So we really need to be aware of that inner voice that we're listening to, and we need to supply where's the evidence to support a negative inner voice and a negative self-image, to be able to counter that, to be able to be positive with our self-image, to be able to deal with a problem and have the confidence to be able to do it. But sometimes we need to separate our our forebrain and our subconscious brain through an activity that is a distraction that allows our subconscious mind to work on the solution.
So be careful that we're not overanalyzing things. I think we've all experienced that. We're trying to remember something, we're trying to think about something, and we're thinking so hard, we're cramping up, as it were. And then if we forget about it, 5 minutes later, we go, oh yeah, here's the name I was trying to think of, or here's the word I was trying to think of, because we stopped thinking about it so hard.
Yeah. And one of the things in the book, it says that all decisions are made behind the scenes. So we're really thinking about stuff behind the scenes, behind our forebrain, and in our subconscious mind, we're coming up with creative solutions. I mean, we need to really think about, where are we most creative? As I was thinking about this chapter, I thought about, where am I most creative? If I'm sitting in the hot tub, my stress level is down, my creativity goes up. And I think the author is really making a point, and it starts off in the first chapter of the book, is talking about stress. And stress can be very limiting when it comes to creativity. So if we can find an environment where stress is reduced, creativity is going to strive and thrive. And that is going to solve a lot of the problems.
And I think that ties into what we talked about last week, which is really understanding the percentages of things, right? What is really going to happen? And we tend to worry and fuss over things that maybe aren't going to happen. Dale Carnegie, in his book, How to Stop Worrying and Start Living, one of his key pieces of advice is, think about this idea of, will this matter in 5 years? If whatever I'm worrying about really won't matter in 5 years, it's probably not a big enough problem to worry about. And I'm causing myself a lot of stress. And then, as you say, that stress is keeping us from being able to use our subconscious in a positive way.
And how many of the things do we worry about actually come true? I mean, it's not that high of a percentage. I mean, it's 15%. I think I heard one place that 85% of the stuff we worry about never ever happens.
Yeah, I heard write down the thing that's bothering you right now and put it in an envelope and mark it for 6 months from now, and then go see if that was really a problem or really just kind of solved itself. And if you do that often enough, you can start to convince yourself that I'm worrying needlessly about things that aren't really coming true.
Yeah, I've heard another great quote is like, what is the goal? Everything else is a distraction. So when we think about our day, what do we want to accomplish? What's urgent? What's important? Separating the two, and then focus on what matters most. What is the goal? And then don't get caught up in the distractions that can prevent you from achieving the goal.
And that focus is tough to do. I heard a speaker just the other day talking about focus, and he's a golf professional, so he's using Tiger Woods as an example. And by the way, if you're a praying person, pray for Tiger Woods in a terrible accident last week. And I haven't read a lot about it because I've gone away from the news, but I heard a blurb on it. So anyway, when Tiger was asked once how he could be the greatest golfer out there, he said, "I'm not the greatest golfer. I'm the most focused golfer." And the speaker made the observation that he uses a trigger, and that trigger is he puts on his golf glove. As soon as Tiger would put on his golf glove, he would be in this focused mode, hyper focused. He'd make his shot, and then as he started to walk down the fairway, he'd take the glove off again, so he didn't have to focus. He could relax, he could talk to the people, and then when he's ready to make the next shot and start thinking about it, he puts his glove back on, gets himself back into the focus mode. And I thought that was really interesting, that we can't stay focused all the time. And I think in sales, we have to learn how to get hyper focused when we're in the sales call, when we're actually talking to that client, or when we're trying to help them solve a problem. But we can't stay hyper focused all the time. So we have to have those times where we can relax as well.
Yeah, when we relax, I think some of our ideas are going to come to fruition, and we're going to be able to create some of the solutions to some of the challenges that we deal with. So,
all right, great.
Very good.
Good chapter. Good chapter.
Yeah, it is. This segment has been brought to you by the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program, presented by your host of Get in the Door podcast. Business is heating up, and now is the time to get back on the selling track. While others wait for the market to improve, prospects and opportunities await you now. Perhaps you want to be more productive on your prospecting, or you'd like to increase your closing percentage. Maybe having meetings online is not as comfortable as being in person. Sales reps are telling us they need some honest accountability and skill development to rise above the competition. Whatever your reason, this is the perfect time to engage with an experienced sales coach. That is why the host of Get in the Door podcast, Professor Scott Plum and Bill Hellkamp, have developed the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. For only $495, you can receive personal coaching from the same sales professionals you enjoy on this podcast. It all starts with a discussion to give us your insights into your specific goals, challenges, needs, and motivation. After your 1-hour online session to jumpstart your coaching process, you will receive 5 more half-hour individual coaching sessions to enable you to make improvements over time and create new habits. Most salespeople make their money back with just one sale. Go to getinthedoorpodcast.com to contact Bill or Scott about the Jumpstart Sales Coaching Program. Do you believe you deserve better results? Now is the time to invest in yourself and invest in your future.
Our main topic today is your company pitch, and I have to start off by admitting that I absolutely hate the word pitch.
All right. Yeah, so do I.
Do you as well? You hate a lot of words,
well,
like I just said helping. I was surprised you didn't catch me on that.
Yeah, that's all right. I've grown numb a little bit to it. But yeah, the pitch is a slang, it's jargon, it's something that I think can be used within an industry, but it should never be used in front of a prospect.
There you go. That's a great way to say it. And I think because it has the feeling of the schmarmy salesperson. Let me tell you about what I got. Right.
Yeah,
and
right.
so, but I do get a chance because I'm a presentation coach as well. I do have the chance to see a lot of company pitches. People say, "Come take a look at my company pitch. Tell me what you think about it." And the interesting thing, Scott, is almost every slide I write down 2 words. Who cares?
Right.
Who cares about your chest thumping and your wonderfulness and your greatness? And so I wanted to go over some of the challenges that I see in company pitches and have you, if you've seen some challenges or things you don't like about these company pitches, because they have their place, but they are not usually the place where people think they are. So my first challenge with them is they're all words. Usually they're in either a book or a slide format of some kind. So use some pictures, for goodness sakes. Use some logos instead of company names if you're going to talk about the companies you work with. Use some visuals that make your pitch at least more interesting than words.
I think one of the foundations of that is that decisions are emotional, and the emotional side of the brain is the right side of the brain, the creative side of the brain, and it relates more to images than it does words.
My middle son's first words, well, not first words, but kind of an early thing that he said was Donald's. He could recognize McDonald's golden arches, and every time we passed one, he'd point it out and go, Donald's.
Yeah.
So you can tell where we ate,
Right.
more often than we should have. But
yeah.
that it is very emotional, and it's visual for a reason. Right? I mean, that's why we have logos. So people do have an emotional attachment to those. So good point.
Yeah.
The second thing I don't like about them is that often they make a lot of claims that aren't substantiated, and they're claims because they can't be substantiated. They're not facts. This is the best. We're the favorite. We're the number one. We're the chosen, whatever the words are that are popular now, but they have no substantiation. So they're just a lot of blah, blah.
Yeah, and sometimes that boils down to the law of advertising and what is permitted. When you get into a legal industry or even the financial services industry, there are things that they cannot talk about. Attorneys are not allowed to use the word expert. They are not allowed to use the word specialist or specialized unless they are certified in certain practice groups or certain areas of law, but you cannot use the word expert, and attorneys cannot guarantee a certain outcome. That is an industry that has prevented themselves from using certain words.
But most salespeople aren't, and they just fill these company pitches with this kind of stuff. And I think what happens emotionally is it doesn't do what they think it's doing. They think it's causing them to be more valued, and I think it's causing them to be more suspect.
Yeah, really diluting the value and diluting their own credibility.
Yep, their own credibility, absolutely.
Yeah.
The number 3 is claims that don't have value to the current prospect. And the most common one I see is we have offices worldwide, and we have offices in Hong Kong, and we have offices in Indonesia and Great Britain and France. And I'm talking to Harry's corner shop.
Right. Doesn't really
And
matter.
what the heck does he care except to say, I wonder how expensive it is to have offices in Hong Kong and Paris and London.
Yeah.
And how much am I going to pay? Maybe these guys are too big for me.
Well, we've seen that happen with law firms. Law firms have become very localized, and the global law firms are not as predominant anymore. Banks, we have 1,400 locations. So what? I'm only going to go to one.
As long as my debit card is taken, I don't really care where you have locations.
Yeah, you have an ATM.
And by the way, you
network.
don't allow me into your locations anymore anyway. So what's it matter?
Right. Yeah. If I did a lot of coin business, it might be important, but
That's
it doesn't really matter.
That's right. The fourth one is that they make claims that could anger the current prospect. An example I always use is if I'm pitching to Coke and I have Pepsi as one of my logos. Am I working with a competitor? If I'm talking to a smaller organization, maybe a Royal Crown Cola or somebody else, and I'm saying I'm working with Coke, well, that can be prestigious. But if I'm working with Pepsi, if I were Pepsi, I'd say I can't have anything to do with anybody working with Coke.
Yeah.
So think about who you're using and what you're using as value.
And you notice that there's no claims of any airlines promoting a safety record because that could quickly go out the window.
That's right.
Investing millions of dollars on a branding campaign that promotes a safety record, and all of a sudden one crash and it's worthless.
Well, and you have to be careful about that. In the 50s, car companies didn't want to talk about safety because that meant their cars might be unsafe. And so they didn't want to talk about seat belts and shatterproof glass because, well, we don't get in accidents. Are you saying our cars get into accidents? That's the question I always ask when people try to sell me an extended warranty.
Oh, yeah.
I say, am I really going to need this?
Yeah. Maybe I shouldn't buy it.
Is your product so crappy I need an extended warranty for it? That always throws them off. But then
they really have stopped doing that. Maybe I just don't go into many retailers anymore. But every time they say that to me, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't buy it if it's a piece of junk.
I bought one once and it actually paid off. So
good.
I'm like 100 hitting 100% on extended warranty. So
yeah.
All right, number 6, I think 5. The presentation should be tailored to meet the needs, wants, and desires of the audience. It is not a canned pitch. It's not a canned, I do it the same every time. If you're not taking the time to investigate what this prospect needs and what is going to be the best information for them, you're really wasting your time and you're throwing a lot of mud against the wall and hoping it sticks. And that's a bad way to sell.
Right. I think they should always be problem finders, not problem solvers. Problem finders first, problem solvers second. And that creates a better prescription to a solution if you understand what the problem is.
So if we don't know what the needs, wants, and desires are of the audience, of the prospect, until after we've started talking to them and doing some work, should our company pitch be the first thing they see?
Right.
What's your thinking on that? Where they place these company pitches?
Yeah, I think the pitch has to be at the best opportunity to create the best value. And in today's world, there seems to be a lot of digital marketing. And what does digital marketing build? Does it build credibility? I don't think it builds credibility. I think it builds familiarity.
That's a good point.
And I think salespeople build credibility. When digital marketing works, a prospect identifies themselves, they have a conversation with a salesperson. A salesperson is going to offer credibility by offering the best company pitch. And the pitch is going to be, here's how our solution can work with the challenge that you have to give you the outcome you and desire that you want.
Right.
That's the best company pitch.
Yeah, I think too often they've used them as an introduction.
Yeah.
Hi, Harry, I'm Bill. Let me show you about my company. And if I tell you the right thing, you stop me and let me know how wonderful that is. And that's really a broken way of using this company pitch. I agree with you. It comes at the best time. And quite often, I call it a proof statement. It's proving that this solution can be done for you. So it comes at the solution stage, and usually even after the solution, to say, here's what our solution is, and here's my proof that we can actually do this. We've worked with these companies. Here's what they've said about us. You can, call these people. It's all part of your proof that says this isn't. I'm not just blowing smoke here, but we can actually do this.
Mm-hmm. I think another thing that is important in the conversation before presenting the solution is really understanding and identifying what criteria the prospect's going to go through on making their selection. And if we know the criteria, then we know the rules of the game,
right?
And really what they're looking for.
And we know what pieces are going to fall into place in that proof statement.
Mm-hmm. And here's another thing that I think we need to really keep in mind is that it's up to us as salespeople to adapt to the market. It's not up to the market to adapt to the salespeople. And so often the market is changing, but salespeople are not. And if their salespeople are not adjusting with the market and following how buyers behave, we are not going to be relevant. Mm-hmm. Salespeople are not going to be relevant. They're not going to be able to offer the value that prospects are looking for, and we're going to be out of business. But there's no reason for us to be out of business if we are remaining relevant, if we are remaining valuable, and we are working with people to make better decisions.
Yeah, when we talk about value, if I'm using a company presentation or pitch that is the same for everyone, I might be talking about things that are unimportant to them, or maybe even things that they resent. So now I'm creating the wrong vision of value. Mm-hmm. I talk about looking at our maybe 8 value statements and only talking about the 3 or 4 that are pertinent to this particular prospect. If you talk about more, then they're thinking, well, this must be much more expensive. I don't want all these things. I'm confused. And of course, we know what a confused customer is.
Right.
He's a maybe.
Wow, I'm not going to talk to you anymore because I feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
Because you know more than I do, and I feel like I don't know as much as you do. So my dignity has been tarnished, and I feel embarrassed. So I'm not going to talk to you.
So I would recommend, if you really want to use your pitch properly, right? Don't use it as an introduction. Maybe use it. Maybe it's not until the 2nd or 3rd or 4th appointment when you're meeting with them and you're prepared to make that proof statement. Maybe it's even if they ask, well, how do I know that you can do this?
Yeah.
And then it might be time to do that because we haven't answered that question yet.
Another good question to ask your existing customers, clients, is how do you define what I do? And I think you're really going to find out the value that you offer. You're going to see it from a prospect's perspective, a client's perspective, and it's going to be something that is going to separate you from everybody else because there's a reason that they bought from you. Mm-hmm. And maybe you know it, maybe you don't. But another good question is, how would I ever lose your business? If what would be the reason where you stop buying from me? Make sure you don't ever do that. And now you know the criteria.
Well, it also helps you improve that proof statement to the point where it's more valuable to all the different clients that you talk to. Quite often when we work with, and marketing does a lot of these pitches for organizations, and so there's often a disconnect there that we need to be careful of. But if we're not talking to the client about what's valuable to them, how can we ever change the company presentation to be more effective?
Mm-hmm. And stay relevant in the marketplace.
So good. Any other thoughts on this?
No, it's a great topic. I think it's really important to define your message and make sure that it is used universally within an organization too.
And that's right. They talk about having the clear message that is repeated often enough that people start to believe it. Well, I do have one resource that people might enjoy watching. It's a story. I call it The Curse of the Experienced Salesperson. It's a video, a couple of minutes long, and it's a story about a guy that I met that was too experienced for his own good, and I think you might enjoy that. So we'll make a link to that in the show notes. This segment of the Get in the Door podcast is brought to you by The Art of Prospecting, Your Guide to Getting in the Door by Steve Kloida. Steve Kloida was known internationally for increasing salespeople's ability to make solid appointments with qualified prospects. You too can learn this essential skill by ordering a copy of his superb book, The Art of Prospecting, Your Guide to Getting in the Door. In this book, Steve shares the top strategies and tactics he has developed, implemented, and personally tested with more than 1 million sales and prospecting calls. You can get his book on the website theprospectingexpert.com. In addition, check out his other great online resources. Instant Sales Coaching, which will guide you through 5 online success modules. A guided prospecting process entitled Call Reluctance Transformer, and the Magnetic Selling Strategies Workbook, a detailed step-by-step guide to increasing your sales. Get any of these valuable resources at theprospectingexpert.com.
So our golden nugget today is something that I came up with. So some of our listeners know who said it. It's from, of course, Plato, because I want to be consistent. I think there's a lot of content that Plato can share with us.
No one else ever said anything. Go to the source.
And for those of you that studied philosophy, you know that a lot of stuff that Socrates said, Plato takes credit for it because Socrates never wrote anything down, and Plato was Socrates' student. So here's the quote from Plato. Yeah,
Plato the plagiarist. Maybe that's where plagiarism comes from.
There was a mentor-mentee.
Oh, there you go.
You know.
Well, I did study philosophy, Scott. I don't know if you knew that.
No.
For a couple of years, and as Steve Martin said, I learned just enough to screw me up for the rest of my life. So
it is the pursuit of wisdom. So when we go through life and we're giving different situations, sometimes philosophy can help us understand that. So the quote is, "When men speak ill of thee, live so that nobody may believe them."
Did we forget to do the quote until then?
That is it. Finally, we get to the punchline, huh?
Okay. All right. Well, I like this one because I do think it's important to live your life in such a way that you can be proud of yourself. And people are going to speak ill of you no matter what you do. Just live your life as you feel best.
Yeah. What do you want to be known for? And then nobody will be able to disagree with that based on your actions.
Yep. And others will defend you when people speak ill of you because of how you live your life.
Perfect.
So go out and live it well. So you can get all of this information that we're talking about and some links at getinthedoorpodcast.com.
And we'll be covering chapter 7 from the book Psycho-Cybernetics. You can acquire the habit of happiness. And our special guest, we're going to have a special guest, Kitty Hart, is going to be talking about technology, friend or foe. And this is going to be I think, an in-depth session about how technology is used by prospects to screen salespeople out and how salespeople can use technology to improve their sales process. It's going to be a great discussion.
Excellent. Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.